everybody. My name is Ratabi Degada. I am here to tell you about my life story. I asked a friend of mine what they would like to know about me. Then they actually told me that my whole life story is kind of interesting. I was like, maybe it's worth sharing, you know. I'm from a city called Kimberley in South Africa, and I moved to Joburg for most of my life after I was born and bred in Kimberley. And let's just say Johannesburg has been one of the most eye-opening, life-changing experiences for me. You know, I don't know how other people experience it because, there's always these connotations that, it's such a dangerous place and you shouldn't go there and etc etc etc. But I don't want to say that my experience has been the opposite of that. My experience has just been one that was fruitful and one that, I took a lot from. And I'm not saying that I didn't get robbed or I didn't get, wasn't scammed. I mean, I wasn't really scammed in Johannesburg, but, I've experienced my fair share of the Johannesburg experience, as some may call it. But definitely, my experiences have been far better than a lot of people's experiences, and there has been more good than bad experiences in my journey. So I'm going to start by telling you guys that as I said, I'm from Kimberley. I went to a school called Kimberley Girls High. I went to Joburg for varsity purposes. I started off in Midrand at an institution called MGI, which was far too expensive for what I could afford at the time. I then moved to other institutions. I went to Boston Media House. I did a short course at FITS, and yeah, it's been quite the journey. And I would absolutely, I do have siblings, and I would definitely encourage them to go to Joburg and experience it in all its glory. I can't really speak on any other city, but I see the value of leaving your hometown to go and experience a different city, especially one that is much larger than your hometown, so yeah. So in my journey while I was in Joburg, I experienced a lot of things. I instigated a lot of projects. I became a part of a lot of initiatives. But the one thing that I can say for myself, and that I found out very early on, is that I wanted to be in the art world. I wanted to experience the art world, and subsequently I wanted to have my own art gallery at some point. I didn't know how I was going to get there. I don't know where the interest came from. I just know that I've been I wouldn't say artistic as in visual arts, but I mean, I could sing, I was very interested in the arts, as in any other art that was not painting. So I was a dancer at some point, a ballroom dancer. Apparently that is a shocking fact, but that a lot of people don't know about me, but I used to do ballroom dancing, for about a year or so of my life. But I've always been involved in in the arts in some shape or form throughout my childhood life. So, and then I found an interest in art after, like, during the first couple of years of me being in Johannesburg. So, here I am with an interest and nothing more. And I now have to figure out what I'm going to do with this interest. I then find different places. I explore. I used to live in Bram for a lot of the years that I was in varsity. And then I moved just outside of Bram to Newtown, actually to Marshalltown, just opposite the Johannesburg City Library, which was a whole different journey on its own, to be quite honest. But yeah, so at the time, and it was in 2013, I told someone that I'm going to own an art gallery one day. I'm still saying that years later, and it is more in my grasp right now than it ever was before. I got involved in a lot of initiatives, one of which was the Johannesburg City Book Club, and I met a lot of interesting people. I actually I found out about the book club just before I moved to my place in Marshalltown. So luckily I was right opposite the library where this book club was constantly being, every second week they held a book club. But this was not a conventional book club. It was more of, I don't know what people think of book clubs, but this book club was one where people actually talk about, one person reviews a book. That person who's reviewing a book will give insight and information about whatever book. It doesn't even have to be a book. It could be a series. It could be an art piece. It could be an initiative that they were working on. One person was working with, Wikipedia, and he would give us reviews on that, on how to go about being one of the Wikipedia people who edit or who add information onto Wikipedia, etc., etc. So it was not a conventional book club where old ladies sit around and drink tea and read the same book and have the same outlook on that book. Yeah, so it was just people reading. If I've read a book, I will give insight to other people about what that book is about. If you're interested, if I explain it in an interesting enough way, then it would be your own prerogative to actually go and pick up the book and read it yourself. So I found that to be quite an interesting situation, and I met a lot of interesting people there. Also, I used to go to actual art galleries just to see how they are run, just to see how they are, what kind of art is being displayed, what is the general zeitgeist in South Africa, what the general people, how they receive art, what they think about art. And yeah, I found out a lot of information. I got a lot of information from merely just going to art galleries. Just being interested in something makes you ask the right questions, I suppose. So that is also how I got into art. The Johannesburg City Library also has an entire art department that is purely dedicated to the arts, and any book that I could ever possibly think of that was art related, I could find in that department. The book club fed into my interest in reading, and I became more of a profuse reader, and therefore I could go into the library and read more things that I was interested in. And that was just it was a good set of skills to have and a good experience, like going from reading books to going into actual art galleries where you could get tangible information about where you are, because it's all good and well reading about Leonardo da Vinci in a book, or Rembrandt, or Dürer, or whoever, but it becomes more personal when it's in South Africa. It becomes more of your journey that is reflected in another person's art, so I also learned how to make money off of, or why people make money off of art and why it's such an investment. Basically, what I have gathered from that is that art is a long-lasting investment, because after a few years it still needs to speak to someone. It still needs to speak to the person that is viewing it, or that is looking at it from that eye in the next few years. If something is made today and within 30 years it's still relevant, or they still see it the same, or it just sparks something in them, then it would be an investment to some degree, especially if you're trying to sell it off to the next person, or keep it as a generational wealth thing. So it is obviously much intricate and complicated than that, but on the surface, that is what it is. I may actually have or do another video on the art world and how they monetize the actual art. It's not a very easy journey, but basically the more time you have in the art industry, and the more relatable you are as an artist to people, the more selling power you have, the more of an investment your work becomes. So those are some of the things that I found in my journey in Johannesburg. Also, I've carried out those things within the 9 years that I lived there. It's been challenge after challenge. I can't say that it's been rosy or whatever, but I found that all the challenges made me they molded me into a better human being, and the outcome really did speak to my character. And I think that I've remained a stronger version of myself, but I haven't changed drastically. I've changed. I may have changed in articulating my point, and it's much stronger now. So but I haven't changed much, and the Joburg life did not change me much. But in the 9 years that I've lived there, I've noticed a lot, and I've also noticed the great disparity between where I come from, which is Kimberley, and Johannesburg. There are so many differences, and also there's just a greater population in Johannesburg than there is in Kimberley. And I guess that the more the people, the greater the conversation, the more things are driven with a certain agenda in mind, and the more diversity there is in ideas, in people, in thinking. So that's what I've noticed, and that is what I'd like to drive into the people that basically that I grew up with, the people that are back in my hometown, I'd like to drive that point home, that we can do anything that we put our minds to. Some of the greatest people that are actually killing the game right now are from Kimberley. So it's we all cut from the same cloth. We have the same ideas. It's the execution that becomes a problem to some people, and it becomes it's too hard to do certain things, and therefore I'm just not gonna do it at all. And that is not the way that you should ever look at life, and it shouldn't be a narrative that we push within society, especially among young people with brilliant ideas. So yeah, and I just like to urge everybody who is in a position of doing something great to make it easier for people who do have great ideas. Another thing that made me, well, the final thing that I was heavily involved in, due to the fact that I used to go to art galleries a lot, I ended up at the Goodman Gallery the one day because I was interested a in an exhibition that they held. The one, it was in October of 2019. No, it was September actually of 2019. They were exhibiting Carrie Mae Weems. She is an artist from America, and she is represented in South Africa by the Goodman Gallery. And I really wanted to check that exhibition out, and I was invited by one of my friends. His name is Sipho Mabaso, who actually who had more information about the exhibition and when it was taking place, etc., etc. So he invited me, and told me to sell my story, which I did. I told the owner of the gallery that I am a young person who's trying to open an art gallery in her hometown, and on the spot she actually hired me, and that was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. Shout out Lisa, shout out. It was a great experience, although very brief, but I learned a lot within just that period that I was there. I learned a lot, and I met a lot of people, and I know a lot more about how to run a gallery than I did previously. So that was possibly one of the greatest experiences of my life in terms of my art career, or my pursuit of opening an art gallery. It was surreal at the time, and I really did meet a lot of great people in the art world. I'm not very good at keeping contact and keeping the people, or most of the people that I network with. But yeah, if we do ever cross paths again, I hope that it will be in good faith. But yeah, it was a really eye-opening experience for me. I met most of the people that the gallery represented. I I transcribed words. I transcribed interviews, which made me more open and receptive to how people to the thought process behind people's art and how they work. I Yeah, and I cataloged a lot of great people's artwork. Even most a lot of people that have passed on that were represented by the gallery are really great artists. I mean, that was one of, or still is one of the best galleries in South Africa. So it was a truly great experience, and I really appreciate every second of that. And yeah, after that, it just made me more eager to open my art gallery because it has to happen sooner or later. So I'm working on that currently, and yeah, it's great. But anyway, thank you for joining me. The story, the saga shall continue. So yeah, I hope you tune in, and I hope you're interested in whatever it is that I have to share. I'll be sharing a lot about books. I'll be sharing a lot about art. I'll be sharing a lot about music, anything that has to do with the arts that I find interesting. And yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for taking the time out to watch and listen to what I have to say. Until we meet again, goodbye.